Niner faithful. 1 week from today, the San Francisco 49ers open training camp in Santa Clara, and after one of the most eventful and genuinely consequential off-seasons this franchise has experienced in years, the moment where speculation ends and actual football begins is finally right around the corner. Everything that has been discussed, projected, and debated since the end of last season is about to get its first real test on a padded practice field. The Brandon Ayuk situation, Mike Evans' fit in this offense, George Kittle's recovery timeline, the pass rush transformation that Osa Odighizuwa is supposed to bring, the questions about this secondary, the backup quarterback decision, all of it gets its first genuine answers over the next several weeks. Let us break down the 5 most important storylines to monitor as training camp approaches, because these are the specific threads that will define what kind of team the San Francisco 49ers actually are in 2026. Start with the most emotionally charged and the most practically consequential storyline surrounding this team right now. Brandon Ayuk. Because regardless of how you feel about him personally, regardless of which side of the narrative you have come down on throughout this saga, the truth is that the resolution of this situation, however it happens and whenever it happens, will have meaningful implications for this roster's cap structure, this locker room's chemistry, and this organization's ability to fully direct its attention toward the business of winning football games. The distraction tax of carrying an unhappy, publicly antagonistic player on the reserve list is real, even when the coaching staff and the veterans handle it professionally. Even when the locker room is insulated from the drama by the culture Kyle Shanahan has built. Every question that does not get asked about Mike Evans or Brock Purdy or Nick Bosa in a press conference, because a reporter asks about Ayuk instead, is a small but real cost. Every day this organization is managing a situation that has no clean resolution is a day its collective energy is not entirely pointed at preparation. The most likely outcome, based on every piece of reporting from the insiders who are closest to this situation, is that the 49ers release Ayuk sometime before or shortly after training camp opens. Either unable to find a trading partner willing to pay appropriate compensation or simply reaching the conclusion that the organizational cost of continuing to carry this situation is no longer worth whatever potential trade value might materialize. Adam Schefter has been among the most direct voices suggesting that a release is the most likely endpoint, with Ayuk then immediately signing with the Washington Commanders given the relationship with Jaden Daniels and the consistent social media trail he has left pointing in that direction. What this actually means for the 49ers from a football perspective is less significant than the national narrative around this story suggests, specifically because this organization has already spent the entire offseason building a receiving core that does not need Ayuk to be elite. Mike Evans is here. Christian Kirk is here. Ricky Pearsall is entering his 3rd season. The receiver room is fine. The missing of Ayuk, while genuinely unfortunate given the talent he possesses when motivated and healthy, is not a football problem for this team in 2026. The second major training camp storyline is the one that actually determines what this offense's ceiling looks like this season. George Kittle's health and availability for the start of the regular season. Everything coming out of Tight End University in Nashville and from the coaches who have been around Kittle throughout his rehabilitation has been genuinely encouraging, with specific reports of him running at 16 miles per hour, showing genuine lateral movement capability without compensating for pain, and demonstrating the kind of relentless commitment to this process that has defined his entire professional career. Kyle Shanahan, his position coach, described watching Kittle push through his rehabilitation even during a vacation trip to Cabo, getting up early and staying up late to complete his rehab work regardless of the social circumstances around him. That is a player who is treating this recovery process with championship-level seriousness. But the honest reality is that nobody outside of Kittle's medical team knows with complete certainty what his body is going to tell him when he returns to full contact practice for the first time since the playoff game where he suffered the injury. Achilles tears are genuinely unpredictable in all depth of this roster. A starting spot with Kittle available immediately is obviously preferable. But Jake Tonges emerging as a legitimate secondary tight end option throughout this offseason means the offense has real functional depth at this position in a way it has rarely had during Kittle's tenure. The third storyline involves the pass rush, specifically whether the addition of Osa Odighizuwa transforms this defensive line from a unit that posted 20 total sacks last season, dead last in the entire NFL, into something that genuinely threatens opposing quarterbacks and changes how opposing offensive coordinators have to structure their protection schemes. Everything in the theoretical framework around this addition makes tremendous sense. Odighizuwa generated 52 pressures last season for the Dallas Cowboys, nearly matching the entire 49ers defensive tackle room's cumulative pressure production for the year. Nick Bosa is one of the 2 or 3 best edge rushers in professional, appropriately validated. The fourth storyline centers on the Mac Jones trade situation and the broader question of how this organization handles the backup quarterback room heading into the regular season. Insider Eric Branch reported that the 49ers could genuinely be open to trading Jones if rookie Curtis Rourke shows enough promise in training camp and the preseason to handle the backup responsibilities with genuine competence. Jones's value as a commodity in the current NFL market is legitimate. He went 5-3 as a starter last season, led the NFL in passing yards per game during stretches of his starting opportunity, and demonstrated that he is a competent, reliable quarterback who can keep a team competitive when called upon. The question is whether his specific value in the context of this offense and this roster is better expressed as a backup plan behind Brock Purdy or as a draft pick that helps this organization build for the future. The organizational calculus here runs directly through Purdy's health history. Over the past 2 seasons, Purdy has been limited by a turf toe injury that affected his availability and his performance in ways that genuinely impacted what this team could accomplish. Having a reliable, proven backup behind him is not an abstract insurance concept. It is a practical necessity that this organization has direct recent experience understanding the value of. Trading Jones requires genuine confidence that Rourke is ready to handle those responsibilities if called upon, and the only way to develop that confidence is to watch Rourke perform in training camp and preseason games against real competition. If he impresses in August, the Jones trade conversation becomes genuinely realistic. If the preseason reveals Rourke needs more time, Jones stays as the organizational security blanket he currently represents. The fifth and final training camp storyline deserves the kind of honest engagement that goes beyond pure optimism, because it represents the genuine risk factor that could determine whether this season reaches its ceiling or falls short of it. The secondary. This defense has real questions at safety and at the cornerback depth level that training camp needs to begin answering definitively. Diamador Lenoir is a legitimate starting cornerback. Upton Stout's development as a nickel corner has been consistently praised by Fred Warner, whose judgment on defensive back talent carries genuine credibility given his positional expertise. But the safety position, specifically the combination of Talanoa Hufanga, Jair Brown, and Marquise Sigler, represents the most genuine uncertainty on this roster relative to what the position demands in a competitive NFC playoff field. This was the position that was genuinely exposed in the playoff loss to the Rams last season. And while the overall defensive improvement from adding Odighizuwa and getting Warner back healthy addresses the structural problems in front of the secondary, it does not eliminate the question of whether this back end can hold up when opposing offenses specifically target it. Training camp is where this organization discovers exactly how much Sigler has developed, whether Hufanga is operating at the level this team needs him to reach, and whether the overall secondary communication and coverage assignment execution has improved from where it was during the most difficult stretches of last season. If those questions get answered positively in camp and in the preseason, This defense has genuine potential to be a top 10 unit in the NFL. If the secondary continues to represent a genuine liability, the offensive firepower of this team may not be sufficient to compensate for every defensive breakdown across a full 17-game regular season. When you step back and look at the complete picture of what these 5 storylines collectively represent, the dominant theme is one of genuine, earned, well-founded optimism about where this franchise stands as training camp opens. The offense is as well equipped as it has been at any point in the Shanahan era, with the specific receiver talent to address every coverage look that opposing defenses can present. The defensive line transformation, if Odighizuwa delivers on his potential in this scheme, could turn the single biggest weakness of last season's team into a genuine strength. The coaching staff is experienced. What is your win total prediction for the 2026 San Francisco 49ers? Drop everything you have got in the comments section below, hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel because training camp starts in 7 days, and we are going to be right here for every single moment of it. Let's go Niners!